welcome to another edition of Rise and Shine. Today we're going to be talking about discrimination here in America, especially among the Asian group. We're going to say a brief prayer and then we'll get this show started. With the name of God, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, all praise is due to God, the cherisher, sustainer of all worlds, the most merciful benefactor, merciful redeemer. Thee alone do we serve, and thee alone do we beseech for aid. Show us the straight way, the way of those whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath, and who go not astray. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
I'm James Gordon.
And I'm Robert Battle.
And I'm Henry Haseeb.
We're going to take a brief break and be right back to jump into this subject matter, discrimination against our Asian American citizens.
Considering an online pharmacy? Explore BeSafeRx to find useful information and resources to help you purchase medicines safely online. A safe online pharmacy requires a doctor's prescription, has an address in the United States, has a licensed pharmacist, and is licensed by a state pharmacy board. It's best to stay away from online pharmacies that don't meet these criteria. Discover more helpful tips and resources at BeSafeRx. Go to fda.gov/BeSafeRx.
Many medicines used to treat colds and flu contain acetaminophen, a pain reliever and fever reducer found in hundreds of over-the-counter and prescription medicines. But taking too much or more than one medication containing acetaminophen per day can damage your liver. So always read the label and don't take acetaminophen if you drink 3 or more alcoholic drinks every day. To learn more, visit fda.gov/OTC pain info. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Food and Drug Administration.
Welcome back. Today we're talking about the discrimination and particularly the Asian American communities, the discrimination they've been feeling recently. And Brother Haseeb, what are some of your thoughts on that matter?
Well, I'd like to say first that my heart goes out to the Asian community and other communities. You know, we discrimination in America, we have a long history of that. Of course, you know, as African Americans, we know how discrimination works. And we're not over it either. But today, with the things that's happening to the Asian community, I think we need to take note of, because some of us think that we are free, that there's no more discrimination among African Americans because we have made progress. But the same thing that's happening in the Asian community, which I think is really sickening, because we should never discriminate against a person because of race, creed, or color. And those are I think would make a person really worse than the person that they're discriminating against because of those things. Just because a person look a certain way or is a certain culture that you discriminate against them.
And I just like to say that I think that our country has come a long way. There's no institutional or there's no law on the books that discriminates against a particular race or
If
creed.
you can put it back on the Georgia, though.
In this day and age, these are individuals, like I think you said, and the individuals, we need to have a way, and they did, I think, charge this gentleman in New York recently that happened where he beat a 65-year-old lady for no reason, and it happened to be a black gentleman. But hopefully they give him the death penalty or something really harsh to send us a message that this is not tolerated in a civilized society. We cannot have a person of any race attack another person of any race unprovokably and that harshly, trying to, I mean, it wasn't a bump and walk away. It was a bump, kick, stomp, and this is totally unacceptable. Had I seen that, I would have shot the person. And I condemn the people. I wish they could charge those people, bystanders, with something to where they felt a little pain, to let them know that if you're going to live in this society, if it's done against one of us, it's done against all of us. So you cannot stand idly by and watch someone get abused this way. This is totally unacceptable in any civilized society. Brother Battles, what are some of your thoughts on it?
Well, my understanding of what is happening in the scripture says that the greatest commandment that Jesus has given us is that we love ye one another as I have loved you. With that same precept, it emits the type of relationship that we should feel for our brothers and sisters. When I don't care whether they're Asian, African, whatever they are, whenever person, racism I have experienced directly. In 1966, I entered the University of South Alabama in the midst of Jim Crow, segregation, and what I've experienced there, that racism is really based on fear. It is the fear. So when we look at the conglomerates and the atmosphere, like the riots on January in the national government there, people have stoked fear that brings about an understanding about a person that's really not true. If that man who kicked that Asian woman could have an opportunity to sit down and to talk to her, I think that he would get a greater understanding of her concerns about what her quality of life is. But we talk about white racism, but we don't really focus on black crime. Now in the epidemic explosion, we talk about loving one another, but the greatest thing that's going to eradicate the fear of discrimination is really for God to come, for me to see.
Well, and Brother Haseeb, I know you're a nonviolent person, and I can appreciate that over the years. And Brother Battles go back and forth. Sometimes he's kind-hearted gentleman. I would have shot the guy in New York myself. I seen the guy just shot him in the leg, because I ain't gonna go and try to say get off. I would have shot him and let him know this is wrong. But how would you have handled that?
Well, you know that it's sad, like you said, America's got a history of racism, but I think we have to begin to look at each other as human. You know, and I know that's a lot said and a little, but if we looked at each other as a human being rather than first as black or white, Asian or Japanese, if we did that these are human beings, I think we would come up with a different attitude about another human. As Robert was saying, if you talk to that person and get to know that person, you'll find out that you got a lot of things in common.
Well, and that takes care of the fear problem or the ignorant problem, but there are some people that have hate in their heart.
Oh,
and we say America, but I'll submit that America is divided on skin tones more, but when you go to other places where more people are the same skin tone, there's still people who are playing the division game.
Well, it is even
Muslim,
religion,
Christianity,
right? Exactly, religion.
Light complexion, dark complexion.
There was a story I was reading about a Caucasian gentleman who his intent was to blow up masjids, religious centers of Muslims. And he had made up his mind he's going to do this, but before he did it, he said he went to one of the masjids just to see what they think, because his perception of what was being said about the Muslims, he didn't know was false, but he believed it, and he was really going to do what he said. Now today, because he got to know the Muslims.
He's a Muslim.
He's a Muslim, not only a Muslim, but he's a Muslim imam. He's now teaching people why they shouldn't hate Muslims.
Beautiful.
So if we get a chance to talk to each other a little bit, to really know, because hatred and all of this comes about the further apart that we are. They can tell me something about you, but if I don't know you, I believe what they say.
Yeah.
But if I know you, then I can say, no, you got that a little bit wrong. That's not that. I know that person, and that's not true.
Right.
But when we don't, we seem to accept it as true.
Bearing false witness. I guess we have a
Bearing false witness. I guess that's a good way to say it.
My greatest understanding of hatred and racism is based on really the understanding and the personality. Most psychologists will refer to individual personalities that it develops over a period of time, but it depends on types of relationship. Just say if you're in a relationship with a person And then if you don't respect that person who you're in a relationship with, it's going to cause some negative reaction too. But then when you look at the history of racism, the thing that really bothers me most of all, especially during the last administration when they preached hate and they talk about the separation of the races, but then it's poor white folks who don't understand that they face the same obstacles that I do. Dr. King said, you might hold me down in a ditch, but you got to stay down there with your foot on my shoulder. But every time I get cold, every time I get hurt, every time I get pain, you experience the same thing. So what I'm concluding is that if we could come to some understanding that we are each other's brothers' keepers.
With that thought, let's go into a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after these important messages. Fall, a car smash? No money, no referral, no appointment, no problem. 476 Pain. As a veteran and a legislator and a former board member of the Delta Dream Foundation and Mobile Community Action, I've been a public servant for over 20 years. Pretty faces say, hire me. You should ask, what have they ever done for my Alabama community? Try hiring a servant. 476 Pain, the choice is yours.
Princess Creative Productions can provide affordable and professional video services for small to mid-sized businesses. Our in-studio virtual set shoots start as low as $200. Let our expert get to work on your next video project. Call 251-421-4490 to book your next shoot.
Had enough yet? Do facts no longer matter? Are lies to be encouraged instead of punished? This is not our inheritance. If truth no longer matters, we will not remain free for long. This is our generation's challenge, to defend our founders' hope that we the people could self-govern if we defend our right to get the facts. And right now, we're building the only defense of free people have, the facts, on every politician, every position they held, every statement they've made, every vote they've made, and any cash they've taken. It's the real history on those now pandering for your vote. There are hundreds of young people building our defense right now, and they need your help. We all have our passions, but as our ancestors knew, when events become so foul they threaten us all, we must stand and defend each other. Please, have our backs. Join us at votesmart.org.
First, don't wait to get treated. Secondly, everyone asks for injury business, but who can you trust? Try me, Dr. James Gordon, DC at 476 Pain. Which injury lawyers do our patients trust? I'm not a lawyer, I'm chiropractor Dr. James Gordon. Ask me. Hurting after a car smash? One call to me, Dr. Gordon, DC. Yes, I'm a Christian, I'm a veteran, and I'm a former Alabama legislator. Come give to a giver, 476 Pain. Okay, welcome back to Rise and Shine. We talking this important subject matter about racism in America, particularly our Asian Americans who have been experiencing a uptick of racism since really the COVID virus started, COVID-19, over a year ago.
Well, you know, Doc, we always attribute different things, whether they truth or not, to different people there. And it's just sad that some people have contribute, and the people that they're discriminating against, or that they're harming, have nothing to do with what they're being accused of. Mm-hmm. These are American citizens who happen to be Asian, that support America, right. Was here in America. They can get the flu just like anybody else can get that flu. Right. But we want to blame them for something they had nothing to do with.
Well, the Ebola flu was attributed to an African country, I believe, and then the many of the flus, like the Spanish flu, are attributed to where they started, but many people didn't experience the same type of hate just because of a name tag to where the origin supposed origin or the thought of origin from a condition.
Well, I think when we had the leadership at that time of this country calling it that, then that, because we got a lot of people in this country who don't use their mental capacity the way that if you tell them to do something and you are of a certain status, they respect what you do, they don't question it. It's just like in the military, you know, when they say left, you go left. And if we had the leadership in this country at the time calling it that, then of course you expect these kinds of things to happen.
Well, you know, I had a significant experience a month ago because I had noticed on the local TV that there was a flyer that had been circulating at the University of South Alabama, my alma mater, where they had the fellow who was dressed in a Confederate suit and all this. But then I went out to the rally, and the greatest concern that I expressed to Dr. Walter and the administration at the University of South Alabama was that if you really want to solve the racial problem at the University of South Alabama, all my brothers who in the basketball program, who in the football program, they're the one who bringing fortune and fame to the University of South Alabama. But yet still, out of 4,000 students, there are only about less than 100 who in the African American Student Union Association. So where there is unity, there is strength. When I see LeBron James make all of those concern about racism and different problems that we have in the community, but yet and still, if my brothers who are on the basketball team and the football team, if you think you're a special entity, you're going to see the hammer fall on you soon.
Well, so basically you're saying that you want the sports athletes to speak out more? Or what are you saying?
Not only the athletes, but just people who are in administration. You know, it's become finance, Dr. James Gordon.
Yeah.
Finance has become a great arbiter in the suppression of the people.
I just want to say that the South Alabama situation, that's pretty tone dead of a person, of an adult, to show up at a costume party dressed like something or holding something that they knew were offensive to others. I mean, it's like you couldn't find any other costume. And you didn't think this picture, with the advent, with social media, with all these cameras, you didn't think that was going to get out and cause you some problems with your job. So how did you get to be a professor? How can you be so tone dead and you're a professor too? That lets you know that ignorance and intellect, I mean, it should go together, but it's like ignorance and maybe compassion. Maybe you cannot, that person who wore that outfit could have a lack of compassion, and obviously the level of ignorance was such that the compassion didn't exist. It's like they were drifting.
But Dr. Gordon, you meant ignorance, see?
Yes.
Ignorance don't mean that you're stupid.
It just means you don't know.
It means that you know what's right, but you ignore it.
Ignorance means, well, when you ignore it, it's not ignorance. Ignorance is a more of a too positive a term to give it, because they really shouldn't have been ignorant to the fact they lived in America all their life.
Yeah.
They should have known better. So ignorance, maybe it's like you didn't care. That was you ignored the fact that that hurt somebody. Haseeb and I have lived in America, and you all of our lives, so we know certain things could hurt races of other races if we did it or said. So we would never do that.
No.
You would stay away from that.
But you know, most
So
of
it's
the
not
part-
ignorance. You're right. Ignorance is a bad word. It's non-caring. It's just the evil mind. I mean, it's just not non-caring. They did not care enough, or did not have consideration, and they just were evil-minded. Didn't care.
Dr. Gordon, that's why integration has been a very negative impact on the African American community. I think
I
because
disagree with that.
It has, because I think we lost the basic tenets of our culture and our roots. But more importantly, what I'm saying is that when I entered South Alabama in 1966, I hated white folks. Let me finish now.
Okay.
I hated white folks because I had come up in the civil rights movement. I had come up under Jim Crow. But then as I matriculated through the university, I found out that there were more white people who was on my side than there was black people.
Whereas like assimilation and integration don't equal necessarily. You can integrate without assimilating. There's many cultures that have
What's
come
the
together.
difference? What's the
Well,
difference?
but let me explain.
Explain.
If I immigrate, means you're going to have to push the masses together. But when I assimilate, I try to act like that other culture. If I kept my own culture, it's the individual could no one. See, during the World War II, there was people killing people for speaking a different language if you didn't speak a certain language. That's forced assimilation. We never had forced assimilation. No one was killing us to say, if you keep that African culture you had, if you keep this culture you had, no one said that I'll kill you if you keep that culture you had. But there are people in the Philippines, when America occupied the Philippines and had their little bases, Clark Air Force Base and Subic Bay Naval Base, they said to the Filipinos in the base, if you speak Tagalog, we kill you, or we hurt you. There was a price to pay. That's forced assimilation. That's a person forcing you to do it with your culture. We have some point got to start taking responsibility for walking away from our culture. No one forced us. Now, you could say I get along better, or the boss man would accept me better if I act like the boss man, but the boss man didn't say you must act like me, you must do this, you must do that. That's why Kwanzaa was discovered in America. It was a Chicago.
It was after the white ride.
But they discovered it because they know they can hold on to their culture. There's no forced culture in America, and we got to start applauding people who decide to hold on to their culture. If Haseeb says, okay, we are from Swedish originally, and we decide to do certain things during a certain time of the year, we need to embrace that and applaud that, not hate that.
So you're saying that you can't hold on to your culture and assimilate?
You can't. If you don't hold on to your culture, you are trying to assimilate. You're trying to be like somebody else. If I integrate is a law. Integrate said you will allow blacks and whites to go to the same school.
That's right.
But assimilation says the black man will give up his culture and be like the white man, act like the white man, and celebrate like the white man. That's forced assimilation. We have not had that.
Well, let me tell you what I define as assimilation.
You can't make your own definition.
I ain't making no definition. We're talking about the reality.
I understand what you understand.
We're talking about the reality.
You're right.
What I keep going back to South Alabama. I wasn't forced to assimilate.
Right.
I assimilated because the culture. But no, not to get along, because I ain't never got along with nobody. Nobody who know my history know I ain't got no history of that. But what I did do though, and I thank God for learning this, and for my mother who instilled this in me, is that all people have the same potential in order to be good. It's just the way that you impact with them. At South Alabama, I didn't assimilate. Marcus Garvey from Jamaica said, if you don't know your history and your roots, it's just like a tree without no roots. So you have to maintain your culture, and you can still assimilate. I can still impact with you.
I'm saying, but if you assimilate, then you chose to give up your. You
don't have to give it up, though, Dr.
Integration and assimilation is different. I'm just saying, if you choose to give it up, that's the problem. We agree on the problem.
No, but what you disagree with, though, Dr. Gordon, is
whether it's forced or not forced. The only question is, that's the only question. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to make a difference. I'm just saying that if no one forced you, if I say, Haseeb, you pray 5 times a day, you must only pray 2 times a day, 3 times a day. That's forced assimilation. No one forces him to do that.
But look at this, though, Dr. Gordon. In your clinic, you got Caucasian doctors. Yeah, okay, listen now. You got
European American. If you're going to use a dash hyphen, let's make him European American.
You call me Black American. I don't care what you call me. But anyway, but in your office, you don't lose your culture by assimilating with your employees and your white doctors, but you have mutual respect for them because of who they are and the way they do and what they do to you. You don't get no preconceived notice.
I'm just saying
that you're above them. That's what hate
does. We agree.
Hate means that.
I'm just saying.
When you look at the
if we lost the culture, it's because we gave it up.
Well, I ain't giving up mine.
I'm just saying if we lost it.
Well, I'm 75 years old. I ain't never given it up. But I respect my white brother, though.
you last see, Tom?
There may have say it wasn't forced, and I think in the African American with our history here in America, coming through slavery and all, we were forced to give up a lot.
And slavery was forced. That was
Right.
forced. That's
So-
forced assimilation.
And those assimilation, like our names, for example,
Religion, name,
culture, all of those things we were forced to give up.
yeah.
And today
I agree.
we see the results of those things that we're talking about. Not only discrimination, but not having the culture that we respect. We got a lot of people of African American descent that don't respect African American culture.
Well, here's the thing. What you're saying to that thought is, I would say to our black brothers and sisters that you're right. Going through the institution of slavery for 400 years, we were forced to assimilate, to be like the white person who was over the plantations, if you will. Now that we're not forced, we could choose to go back to Africa, to go back to a country to try to regain some of those cultures, or to research, or to, there's nothing stopping us from learning or relearning those cultural behaviors. But I would say that a person without their cultural, like when the person coming here from the Middle East, or when I think about, Alec Naaman comes to mind. Judge Naaman had Edmund Naaman just posted some stuff about son's birthday parties and whatnot on the internet, and if you are of another culture and you have certain days you celebrate. I have friends that have Jewish descent and they have other holidays and whatnot they celebrate. I have Muslim friends that got other holidays they celebrate. So at some point you can choose to relearn your culture, your roots. If you want to go and get your genes done and find out what part of the country of the world you're from, you can fly over there and try to learn the culture and try to regain.
Okay, Dr. Gordon,
culture.
just to conclude on this, sir.
Yes, sir.
About let's
Just
take
talking to
it.
the elder. Why are you always concluding?
I'm concluding because I have to be finite with you. But let me tell you this. When we talk about an example of what the culture is, all we need to do is reflect back on the Clotilda. Listen to me now. Let me just speak 1 second. Let's reflect back on the Clotilda. In the midst of Jim Crow, segregation, and Reconstruction, they built a free community in Africa Town, run by Africans, controlled by Africans, maintain their culture, maintain their language, and they are celebrated even today, over 100-something years later.
Robert Battles and Brother Haseeb, we're not disagreeing. All I'm saying is, if a person felt that they lost their culture, they can always. There's nothing stopping them from
How do you lose your culture, Dr. Gordon?
If you do forced assimilation. I'm saying that you still hung up on where the heck you hung up on. But I'm saying that if a person, I think that our black community, the reason we have so much black on black crime and so much self-hate, if you would, is because of, like Brother Haseeb said, okay, if you're forced to live a certain way back years ago and your family's passed it on, we didn't personally feel the effects of slavery, but the programming that came through the generations, we definitely have to say that affects the person of today. If that person of today does not love themselves, if they're always trying to add something to their hair or something to their eyes or something if they're trying to make themselves assimilate to look like somebody else, then it means that what's wrong with you looking like yourself, how you were made. So if you have a problem with looking how you were made, then maybe we should go back to the roots to try to regain some of the culture and some of the beliefs and some of the practices, and now you can appreciate how God made you.
All right.
So Brother Haseeb and me, we wake up in the morning, rub our head back and keep going, but some people have to do a lot of other things because they say, I don't like that.
I got kinky hair.
Our hair more nappy than yours. Your hair got y'all them straight. I see y'all them straight boys. I see we better close this out because they were running out of tape.
I believe we're about out of time, but it's a good conversation. I think it's a conversation we have to continue sometime in the
Y'all
future.
just to pin me up in here where I'm just so suppressed. I'm just losing my culture.
You're assimilating.
You're assimilating. Act like I see.
But it is an important subject there, and it's something that really need to be, because when we look at the history of the African American, we are one of the few people that have been through a condition of slavery that has not psychologically been examined today to see what is the psychological effect that slavery had on our people.
But Dr. Haseeb, you talk about slavery. Slavery only entered into the American culture in 1619 at Jamestown, Virginia. Dr. Asa Hilliard, who's a forensic psychologist from Georgia State University, said 100 million years ago, all life walked out of Ethiopia. So we just can't go back to slavery and get fixated. The psychologists say we get to a period and we stop and we blame everything on slavery. But what about during the time when nobody on the earth but us, African Americans?
What I'm trying to say, I'm not blaming. I'm saying that if you feel that your culture, my culture is too much like Haseeb's, I want to find out what my culture is like. So I do DNA. I say, okay, I must be from Ghana. So I'm gonna go to Ghana and see how the Ghananese
But you
are
might
doing.
be from the Philippines
or Chicago. But in the event, all I'm saying is that if a person feels that they don't love themselves, that they hate themselves, then maybe they should do a self-examination and try to get back to the root of themselves. And that's all I was saying. So it doesn't mean that you are or that you will or you blame it on this institution. But I would say that that institution did force you out of your language. It did force you out of your religion. It did force you out of your lifestyle. It did force you out of your climate.
But look at those who survived, though.
Everybody survived. The ones that are here survived, but we're not talking about that. You survived with a messed up mind. You got self-hate. Why am I willing to kill somebody? Or why am I a 20-year-old willing to shoot up somebody? Or willing to? Why was 5 people shooting at each other over off Airport Boulevard by that gas station, shot 40, 50 rounds of bullets, not realizing that all these people that live in these houses around you could catch a stray bullet? I mean, at what point does the care, the love of self extend to love of humanity? That's what I'm saying. So somehow we're missing self-love.
So
I can't love self. If I shoot 40 times at something and I got people that live around me, all these innocent bystanders that could have got hit.
But what about the mass killings? They're not primarily...
We're not talking about that, Brother Bell. You doing a psychiatry analysis?
No, I ain't talking about analysis. I'm talking about you comparison.
I'm saying there's self-hate. I'm saying you don't love yourself enough. If you and I had a beef
so what about all
10 years ago,
all the serial killers who done killed all these people? They don't love themselves.
10 years ago, you and I, and today, you and I have a problem. We talk to each other. We have a problem with each other. I would never put Haseeb in harm's way if I had a problem with you. My aim is at you.
Well,
so if I go and attack you out in the public where I could hurt 40 other people, I have to have a problem with self-worth. And you, of course, I don't think you're worth because I'm trying to hurt you, but obviously I have a problem with self-worth if I don't think about all these stray bullets that are going around.
Well, I'm gonna get you back.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm gonna get you back. You hurt me, I'm gonna get you back.
I know, Bob.
Even if it's dream, how when you ain't here no more, oh, you got me. But,
you kick my dog, I'm gonna kick your cat.
Okay, well, we'll have some hot dogs and hot cats today.
All right,
Brother, so you gonna close us out?
all right, well, this has been another interesting show today, and we look forward to seeing you next week again for another edition of Rise and Shine.